Hey you guys, I kind of feel like we aren't doing enough actual role-playing at our game table. I agree, especially our rogue. He's always breaking character.
What the heck are you talking about? I stab everything that moves!
Yeah, the rogue is also really mean to me. Hey Mr. Wizard, do you think you could zap in a special guest who could teach us a little something about role-playing?
I'd be happy to.
Hey, this is bullcrap. Nobody needs to listen to any lectures about...
Yeah, Gary the intern. I love Gary the intern.
Hello, I'm Gary the intern, and I've been role-playing since high school. On this channel, I make skits that emulate the behaviors of some of the world's worst D&D players that you'll ever have the misfortune of playing with.
I don't like Gary the intern anymore.
Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Lucar, and I've never been a Dungeon Master. I've never even played D&D. On this channel, I give practical Dungeon Master advice that I've stolen from others that you can implement at your game table. Today in the Lair, we're going to be discussing 10 ways you can encourage your players to roleplay more, and number 7 will shock you. And in the spirit of full disclosure, since I'm apparently new to this DMing thing, I asked my community here on YouTube and over on Twitter how they encourage role-playing at their game tables. And many of the ideas in this video were shamelessly stolen from them, so yeah, thanks everyone. I also want to thank my patrons over on Patreon for their continued generosity in helping support what we're doing around here. In particular, I want to thank Aaron S., DEADPOOL, and ITEY. If you've been getting value out of my videos and would like to give back, then I encourage you to consider becoming a patron too. There are perks such as private hangouts and even playing D&D with me as your Dungeon Master. Link below. Now, on the topic of role-playing, there is a big, huge, massive point that I must make. Speaking in character is not the only facet of role-playing. A lot of times when D&D folks talk about role-playing, they're actually talking about just speaking in character. And honestly, I think we need to stop using the term role-playing to refer to speaking in character. It sets false expectations. And why is that? Because there's a whole heck of a lot more to role-playing than just speaking in character. There are, in fact, 3 pillars of D&D that are all role-playing: combat, exploration, and social interaction. These are all parts of role-playing. When people talk about role-playing and mean speaking in character, they're usually referring to social interaction, which is just one part of D&D. Role-playing is the entire all-encompassing whole that is acting out your character. In other words, given your character's knowledge, personality, skills, and backstory, what would you do in any given situation, and what would you say? That's role-playing, not just speaking in funny voices. So, in this video, when I talk about encouraging your players to roleplay, I'm talking about real role-playing. I just want to make sure we're all very clear about that. I actually think I have another video that I made some time ago about talking in different voices and stuff. So if you really just came here wanting to know how to talk in weird voices, then go check that video out. And by encouraging our players to roleplay more, we are distancing them from the idea that the entire game consists of killing everything that moves. We are helping our players to see that there is more to D&D than just stabbing stuff and casting fireball. And a final note before we jump in, don't force your players to roleplay. It's not for everyone. Some players just want to kick down doors and kill monsters, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that style of play. That's why I titled this video Encouraging, not Forcing Your Players to Roleplay. Number 1. Talk to your players using their characters' names, not their actual real-life names. This gets them in the mode of thinking of themselves as that character. I almost never, ever use my players' real-life names while we're at the game table. It's actually a joke in my games that I sometimes forget someone's real name. Isn't that right, Nigel? Along the same vein is having the NPCs talk to their characters, not to the players. And then you can lead your players into roleplaying by asking them what their characters would do. Nigel, what do you do when Lady Tharmer invites you to her manor? You might also approach a player who loves role-playing and encourage them to talk to the other players' characters while they're in their character. This way, your other players are encouraging each other to roleplay, and it's not just you, the Dungeon Master. Number 2. The Dungeon Master should be setting the example of role-playing by role-playing their NPCs. This means role-playing their mannerisms and speaking in different voices if that's part of what you personally do while role-playing. It might also include talking out loud and explaining why you're having an NPC do a thing. And then have the NPCs roleplay with the characters. It is the DM's responsibility to have the world engage with the players. Number 3. Talk to the players about their characters. Ask them questions about how they think and behave. This will inform you as to what a given character should be like so that you can tell when they are role-playing and when they are self-inserting. Ask them how their character feels. Also, try to be familiar with the character's personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. Having a general idea of what these are is going to help you recognize when your players are role-playing. And the reason that you want to know when they're role-playing leads us to our next point. Number 4, reward your players when they role-play. By rewarding role-playing, you are thus encouraging them to role-play more. This could be something like giving them inspiration or luck points when they roleplay. See my video about house rules that I made not too long ago for more information about luck points. Another big thing you can do is give them extra experience points when they roleplay. Players always want more experience points, and if they get it for roleplaying, you could be almost guaranteed that they're probably going to roleplay more. If the only thing that you reward XP for is combat, then that's exactly what your players are going to do. You could also reward them with custom loot. That might even include parts of their backstory or interest in it. For instance, any Dungeon Master could give a player a +1 axe that deals necrotic damage. But if it's got a raven skull topped on it and there's an explosion of shadowy feathers when it crits something, you're dang well right that your cleric of the Raven Queen will want that axe. And the ways that you reward your players doesn't have to be fancy and showy either. Just telling them that you thought they did an amazing job of roleplaying works wonders as well. People love to be recognized when they do something well. Number 5. Don't have the enemies attack first. This is a basic rule that I have for almost all of my encounters, and the rule exists for a myriad of reasons, one of which is that it encourages the players to roleplay. In other words, when the monsters don't attack first, I give my players an opportunity to do something besides just fight them. This allows them to roleplay their characters in different ways besides just combat. You might have a pacifist cleric who would rather negotiate or bribe the enemies before having to fight, or you might have players whose characters would rather talk things out. Number 6. Make sure your players enjoy their characters. If a player doesn't like their character, they're probably not going to be super interested in role-playing them. Also, try to make sure the character is deep enough that they actually have a personality and aren't two-dimensional. Having your player create a backstory for their character can go a long way toward making sure this happens. When characters have backstories, that helps inform who they are and how they behave, and your players can draw on that information to roleplay their characters. I have a really simple template that I use with a series of questions that helps players create backstories. If you're interested in using it, you can download it for free from my Session 0 video that I did not too long ago. It's linked in the description of that video. Number 7. While you're designing your game, make plenty of connections to your characters' backstories. By weaving your characters' backstories into your game, you encourage your players to roleplay more. This gives the PCs a reason to be invested in the story. Now, there are lots of different ways you could do this. Basically, you just want to make sure that you take something from their backstory or their character goals and place it in the game world. For instance, I had a player who was once a former member of a thieves guild that was taken over by another guild. So I had that enemy guild show up in the game. And someone that was dear to that player was a prisoner of the enemy guild. So the entire group ended up going on a rescue mission to free that person. Or if your player's character was separated some time ago from his mentor and he's been searching for his mentor for some time, you could place clues throughout your game that help lead him to his mentor. And then over the course of the game, your player's character has this sort of backstory mission that he's pursuing. And then at some point, you might actually find his mentor who is pivotal to the plot and story. Number 8, require that your players declare actions instead of declaring skill checks. This is actually a pet peeve of mine. Anyone who has played with me knows that if they declare, for instance, they are making a medicine check, I will almost always stop them and ask them to describe what it is they are attempting to do. Oh, I'm trying to see what killed this person and how long they've been dead. You see, that's much closer to role-playing than simply just stating a game mechanic. If you can divorce your players from thinking in game mechanic terms and instead have them think in terms of what their characters are doing and what they're trying to accomplish, you're going to take them far closer to actual role-playing. Your goal is to get your players thinking of their characters as real people in real places making real decisions. And if you can do that, you're most of the way there as far as encouraging role-playing goes. Number 9. Roleplay the NPCs during combat. Don't let your combats just be a matter of rolling dice and stating how much damage people take. Describe what you're doing. Describe the pain you're feeling or the anger you're feeling, or even better, just act that stuff out. Combat is a great place to roleplay, and you as the Dungeon Master should take a lead doing that so that your players also view combat as a place where they should be roleplaying as well. Number 10. Create a safe space where roleplay is encouraged and accepted and not mocked and frowned upon. In other words, you need your players to feel like it's okay for them to roleplay. It's okay for them to talk about how their characters are feeling. It's okay for them to talk in different voices. Don't laugh at that stuff. Don't mock them. And certainly don't tolerate it if another player tries to do that crap. Let me know down below how you encourage your players to roleplay. Next week, I'll be teaching you how to adjust the difficulty of an encounter on the fly during combat. But until then, click right here to learn how to plan out an entire D&D campaign. And until next time, let's play D&D.